There's something special about beginnings. Not the kind that demand fireworks or grand declarations, but the quiet kind. Like the first ripple that touches the shore just before the tide fully rolls in. We often think we need to have it all figured out from the very start. But beginnings, real ones, usually come slowly. They often come when you are unsure, when your hands are shaking a little bit, when your voice is soft and quiet. That's where strength begins. Just imagine being tossed in the middle of a lake from a boat, told to swim, but you've never even touched water before. Never treaded it, never felt it. The panic that you would feel, the flailing, it would be too much all at once. But if you step in from the edge of the shore, slowly, one toe, one ankle, one breath at a time, you start to learn. You feel the chill of the cool water. You adjust to the sensation of the water's unfamiliar pressures. And slowly, you gain confidence. You begin learning how to move with the water instead of against it. This is how we grow. Small steps of faith are not signs of weakness. They're markers of wisdom. Just as every tree starts with a small seed, every journey begins with a single step. And growth that comes slowly, almost invisibly sometimes. It's often the most lasting as well. So we need to learn to walk slowly, give ourselves a chance to adjust as we start something new. Today I want to take just a moment to honor those small, unsure beginnings because they hold more value than we often give them credit for. Have you ever felt like you had to have everything figured out before you even began? What would it feel like to start smaller, gentler, and give yourself a little grace to take your own first steps? When you begin something new, it's natural to look at those already ahead of you and start to feel inadequate. Whether it's building a habit, starting a creative journey, learning something like a new trade, or simply trying to make sense of your life's decisions. If you were like me, it often seems that there's a voice that says you're not ready. But I've learned that readiness isn't a requirement for beginning. Willingness is. Think about this for a moment. No one would teach a child to walk by giving them running shoes and shouting, "Go." Instead, we hold their hands. We celebrate each stumble, each brave little step. Yet somewhere along the way, we forget the importance of those wobbly moments of simply trying to stand up. But they do matter. In fact, they matter more than the steps that come afterward, because they teach us how to begin without certainty. And that's a gift. My daughters have a habit of, and they may get mad at me for this, but they tend to see something that interests them. Usually some type of craft or just a new skill. They pick up the tools, they jump in, and quickly become frustrated and walk away because they hadn't instantly mastered it. But it's not just them. It's many of us. We want to leap to the middle of the lake right away to master something instantly. But mastery without foundation isn't really mastery at all. Even if you have a natural gift of the interest that you've picked up, the deeper truths The stronger character, the lasting peace, those are what are formed slowly. Sometimes the quiet growth happening beneath the surface, the way you learn to move underneath the water, the unseen patterns, everything that becomes second nature. Those are the meaningful aspects of the entire process. So whatever you're beginning, if it's with your thoughts, your faith, your relationships or habits, give yourself permission to begin gently, to not know everything, to explore, to try, to fail and fall, and to pick yourself up and try again. There's no shame in starting small. There's only courage. What is one area of your life where you've been afraid to begin because you felt you just weren't ready? And what would it look like to begin anyway, with just one small step? There was a man who lived near the sea, not so close that he couldn't hear the waves at night, but near enough to walk there if he chose to. And for years, he didn't. Life had its weight, commitments, distractions, constant pressure to produce or improve daily. His days were full, his thoughts even fuller. Rest always seemed like something he hadn't yet earned. And one morning, for reasons he couldn't quite name, he woke up before the sun. The house was quiet, the sky still gray with sleep. Something in him whispered, "Go to the water." And without overthinking it, he slipped on his shoes and he stepped into the early morning. When he reached the beach, the world was still hushed. No people, no noise, just the shore, breathing in and out every gentle wave. He stood still, just watching. The water didn't hurry. It didn't force itself. It came forward, slowly, softly, then returned. It repeated this motion like a quiet song, one that had been playing long before the man arrived, and would continue long afterward. He sat in the sand, elbows on his knees, and let his thoughts settle. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like he had to figure anything out. He didn't have to solve or fix or rush. The waves had no agenda, yet they shaped the shore, gently, repeatedly. And that thought stayed with him. He began returning to that same spot each morning, not to accomplish anything, just to be, to watch, to listen. And over time, something shifted in him. Not in one grand moment, but in dozens of quiet ones. He started to carry that rhythm into the rest of his life. He spoke a little slower. He listened more carefully. He gave people more space to be where they were, instead of where he thought they should be. He began to see value in the quiet return, the daily showing up, the slow, faithful rhythm of growth. Then one morning, he noticed a child at the edge of the water. She had her shoes off, standing ankle deep. She looked unsure, and he smiled, remembering how he too had once hesitated to even approach the shoreline. He said nothing, just nodded at her, as if to say, "You're doing fine." And he realized something. Beginnings look like that, small, unsure, but steady. We often want transformation to come in loud, dramatic moments, but more often it comes like the tide. Not all at once, but with faithful return. The man didn't set out to change his life. He just went to the water. And the water taught him how. He wasn't trying to master anything. He was learning how to just show up gently. And that became his way of life. And it changed everything. Have you ever found something deeply meaningful? Not in a breakthrough moment, but in a quiet return. What small practice could you begin that might teach you to live more gently? That parable may sound simple, maybe even too quiet to stand out in a world that celebrates noise and speed. But I found those gentle moments, the pauses, the small beginnings, they often echo the loudest when we allow ourselves to listen. I can remember many times in my own life when I stood at the edge of something new. I had ideas in my heart, a quiet stirring I couldn't ignore, but the weight of all I didn't know made me hesitate. There were people around me who seemed already in the water, confident, capable, sure of their decisions, and that made me feel behind before I even started. It wasn't just about ability, it was deeper. It was about doubt, the kind of doubt that doesn't shout, but lingers quietly, that says if you can't swim like they do, maybe you shouldn't try at all. And for a while, I listened to that voice. But then something shifted. And it wasn't because I suddenly felt ready. It was because I gave myself permission to take just one small step forward, to try, to begin without certainty. I started writing without needing it to be perfect. I spoke, even when my voice shook. I created something new, even though I wasn't sure where it would lead. And in those quiet decisions, I found something that surprised me. Progress doesn't arrive with fanfare. It returns like the tide, gently, faithfully. I became more patient, not just with others, but with myself. And in that patience, I found peace. Have you ever taken a moment like that where taking small steps helped you begin to believe again? What would it look like to honor that moment and keep stepping forward, even if it's just slowly? There's something powerful that happens when we stop chasing perfection and instead practice presence. Not the kind of presence that needs to be noticed or applauded, but the quiet kind. The kind that simply shows up. Every act of steady kindness toward yourself, a pause to rest, a moment to breathe, a whisper of encouragement, is a kind of planting. And even if the soil doesn't bloom overnight, that doesn't mean that nothing is growing. It means the roots are forming. When you begin to value the small things, the small beginnings, you also start to trust the slow work. You begin to realize that nothing beautiful in nature rushes. Trees don't sprint. Rivers don't demand applause. And yet their impact is undeniable. Small steps do something even deeper than build skills. They shape us. They soften the inner critic. They allow the heart to just breathe. And in that breathing space, we become more aware. of what we need, of how others are feeling, of what matters and what doesn't. We start to see the sacredness in ordinary moments. The morning light across the floor, the stillness before speaking, the effort it takes to begin again. In time, this changes the way we interact with others, with our families, with our work, with strangers. We stop asking people to hurry their healing or perform their value. Instead, we walk with them because we've learned how to walk with ourselves. This slow, faithful path doesn't shield us from difficulty, but it anchors us in something deeper than comfort. It gives us direction. It builds resilience, not from striving, but from returning. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to finish the race today. You just need to move forward, even if it's only an inch, because strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just keeps going quietly, steadily. What small, steady step could you take today, not to impress anyone, but to show a little kindness to your future self? I want to speak plainly for a minute, because I know how loud the world can be and how small it can make you feel. But there's a strength in you right now, not someday when you've figured everything out, not when you've accomplished all your goals, but now. The way you've kept showing up, even when you've been unsure, that's strength. The way you've tried again after falling short, it's courage. The way you choose gentleness when you could have chosen anger, that's wisdom. There's a quiet strength in pausing, in thinking before you react, in listening when you could be speaking, and sometimes in simply getting up one more time when yesterday was too heavy to carry. These small things may never be posted online or praised by the crowd, but that doesn't make them less real. Your quiet decisions matter. The peace you're cultivating slowly, it matters. The small effort to smile, it's when it's not easy, or the moment of kindness when your own heart is tired. All of it is sacred. We often ask ourselves, am I doing enough? But what if the better question is, am I doing what's needed right now? And maybe what's needed is gentleness, grace, a breath, a return. You don't need to be fearless to be brave. You don't have to be loud to have an impact. You just have to keep walking, even if you're walking slowly, even if you're still finding your footing. Your value isn't waiting at the end of your to-do list. It's already in you, right here, right now. So breathe, trust the process, and give yourself kindness you've so often given to others. Can you name one quiet strength you've seen in yourself lately? What would it look like to celebrate that, even just for a moment? Let's go back to the man on the shore. He didn't start by changing everything in his life. He didn't write a checklist or make a resolution. He simply followed a quiet nudge to return. again and again. And that return became his transformation. We often think of change as a leap, but more often, change comes in a rhythm, a pattern of returning, noticing, being still, trying again. The waves didn't rush him. They never do. And that's part of the lesson. The water came forward and retreated again and again. It didn't have to be different every time to be effective. It just had to be faithful. And slowly, the man became shaped by that rhythm. In our own lives, we're not changed by one dramatic moment, but by many consistent ones. The small moment we pause before reacting. The quiet time we give to our thoughts. The time we start again when we feel like giving up. Each is a wave that returns. And with each return, something in us is reshaped. Not through pressure, but through presence. That's how the shore is shaped. That's how we're shaped. When we allow ourselves to return gently to that moment, to the practice, to our purpose, we begin to live differently. Not faster, but fuller. Not louder, but deeper. And the beauty is, we can always return, no matter how far we've wandered, no matter how long it's been. It starts with a step, and then another, and then another. Where in your life do you feel invited to return? Not with pressure, but with gentleness. What would that first step look like for you? Take a moment today, just pause, breathe, reflect. You don't have to do everything right now. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to begin or return. Small beginnings are not small in purpose. They are how every lasting thing is formed. You are allowed to grow slowly. You are allowed to be unsure. And you are still deeply worthy in that process. So let's learn to walk gently into the day. Not racing, not proving, but becoming together. Not perfectly, not loudly, but faithfully. And if you're ever unsure where to begin, remember this. Even dipping your toes into something new is a beginning. And beginnings are beautiful things. What would it mean for you to see your next step not as pressure, but as potential? And remember, while it may not always be who we are, it can be about who we want to be. Thank you for watching.